as Hamas has told the Reuters news agency that it has approved a list of 34 captives presented by Israel to be exchanged in a ceasefire deal. Hamas says any deal will depend on an Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip and a permanent ceasefire. Well, let's get all the latest on these lines from Al Jazeera's Ali Hashem, and he joins us here on set. Ali, great to speak to you. I know that you are now talking to a member of the Hamas negotiating team. What are they telling you, independently of what they've told Reuters news agency?
Well, what they're saying is that things are still early to call because many things are on the table, especially what's been reported by Reuters or any other news agency. However, it all depends on the Israelis, because the ball is now in the court of the Israelis, and they have to do take their options. And of course, for Hamas, the main objective right now is to end this war. And they've been saying this for a long time. Of course, with a prisoner swap in the right way, with the Israelis getting out of Gaza. These are all points that Hamas been mentioning over the past months, actually 14 months. But now there is something that everyone is looking forward to see, which is a prisoner swap, especially with a lot of controversy, a lot of concerns over the health of the prisoners. So this is the issue right now. Hamas is putting the ball in the Israeli court. Whether the Israelis are going to seize the opportunity, this is the question that the Israelis should answer.
Well, it's interesting that Israeli media is reporting that the head of Mossad is due to be in Doha tomorrow on Monday. So it will be very interesting to see what developments happen then, because, of course, we have had the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu insisting that there will be no permanent ceasefire in Gaza.
Well, of course, beside the Israeli negotiator, the Mossad chief, also there are reports of a very senior American official also coming to Doha. And this gives an indication things are developing in a way or another. However, the big question is, will there be a deal? And will this deal be as early as tomorrow or next tomorrow? Actually, my sources within Hamas are a bit reluctant to give an answer, and they think that this is what Israel would have to decide.
Just to give us a little bit of background, of course, Yahya Sinwar in Gaza was the head of the negotiating, the head of Hamas, and he was killed a few months ago. Has Hamas managed to put forward new negotiators, or do we know who is actually negotiating on behalf of Hamas now?
Well, you know, over the past 6 months, 2 main negotiators have been killed. Ismail Haniyeh, who was the head of Hamas, and he was here in Doha, he was killed in Tehran. The second in command, and then his successor, Yahya Sinwar, was also killed just a few weeks ago. Now, of course, there's someone in Gaza who's calling the shots. But it seems that after all these developments, after this war, Hamas is a bit trying to keep its main negotiators secret. Now, we know that the bureau chief over here, whether in Doha or any other place, are the ones also talking and trying to exchange papers. But at the end, the people in Gaza, the officials in Gaza are the ones who are going to give the final say.
Do we know what's on the table? Is it the three-part plan that we've talked about at length, which has sort of only changed slightly around the edges, but basically is the same sort of format that Joe Biden presented, what was it, back in May, and that the United Nations Security Council accepted as a resolution? Is this still the same deal that's on the table now?
Well, it depends, because this deal was on the table and the Israelis refused it, or they went around it. And then we saw all these developments that took place over the past few months. Of course, the main framework is there. But what's going to change within this framework is going to be decided on the table. And this is what we don't know as journalists and as observers, because there are issues that aren't really said out loud. And that's probably because the negotiations are becoming very delicate, are becoming very sensitive. And at the end, each side would want to present, this is in concept. Each side should present compromises or get some steps back. But it doesn't seem that at least the Israelis are ready to give these compromises, given the fact that they had some successes on the ground in the past, in Lebanon, with respect to what happened and on the Lebanese front. Now, in Gaza, still things aren't changing. Hamas is still fighting, and the main objectives the Israelis put to annihilate Hamas, they're not able to achieve.
In Gaza itself, over the last few days, last week or so, we've been seeing a massive intensification of attacks. The death toll is much higher than it has been in previous months. Some analysts have suggested this is because a deal is nearing, a deal is closing. Would you associate those two events?
Well, I will just take us back a month ago when Israel was negotiating in Lebanon for a ceasefire. Netanyahu was saying, we are negotiating for a ceasefire with fire. And it seems that he is also negotiating for a ceasefire in Gaza with much more fire. And this is, of course, is resulting in more people being killed. But at the end, in Gaza, situation is different. It's not Lebanon. So today, with Hamas still able to fight, with Hamas still standing still there, it doesn't seem that this is going to change the equation.
So we know that we've seen that Biden has very little, if any, influence over Netanyahu. One wonders what influence Trump is going to have, because he said there will be hell to pay if there's no ceasefire when he comes to power. He's going to be sworn in tomorrow, on Monday. He is inaugurated, of course, on January the 20th. Yeah. Do you think that's going to be critical for this deal?
Absolutely, it's going to be critical. But also there are some observers questioning whether Netanyahu would want to sell a deal to the Biden administration, outgoing administration, or wait another week or 10 days, 2 weeks, till Trump is in office, and then sell this deal to Trump.
And if we look to hone in on what Hamas is offering, 34 captives, it's saying. We estimate that there are around 100 captives still in Gaza, not all of them, of course, alive. What do we know, perhaps, about the 34 people that are being offered to be released? Do you think it's mainly the women, or the females, the elderly, the sick? Who do you think would be released?
Hamas, at the beginning, there were talks about the quality, the categories of captives who are going to be released. First of all, the elderlies and women, then the women soldiers, and then the soldiers. I think this was the category that was put at the beginning. Probably this is going to be still Hamas's stance. However, and given the fact that the Israelis already requested these number of captives, as we said, Hamas is throwing the ball in the Israeli court, and now it's going to be up to the Israelis whether to accept or not to accept. Now, it's good that things are moving. And this gives some optimism, at least to those people in Gaza who are currently still in this situation, dire situation. We've been just mentioning the number of people being killed over the past days. And of course, we've been seeing tens of thousands of people being killed over the past year and couple of months. So maybe it's time to end all this.
I suspect we'll be talking more at length over the coming days. But for the moment, many thanks indeed.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get latest news from Al Jazeera.